Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Welcome to the course of Art of Leadership and Motivation, HRM 760. And today is lecture number 30 and I'm your facilitator, Professor Dr. Muhammad Majid Mahmood. Today we are going to talk about role of leaders in organizational learning and organizational performance. Now first let us talk about learning. What is learning? In organizational development, learning is a characteristic of an adaptive organization. That is, an organization that is able to sense changes in signals from its environment, both internal and external, and adopt accordingly. Now let us discuss this definition of learning. First of all, we need to talk about learning. Now, learning is an ongoing process. And people who keep on learning, they keep on improving. And people who think that they are perfect, people who think that they have learned everything, their learning stops. So it is a continuous process. So people who believe in learning, and those people, when they are part of an organization who also believes in learning, that organization is called adaptive organization. Now, adaptive organization means that an organization which adopts. Now, what it adopts? It adopts changes from inside and outside the organization. Like for example, with the passage of time, customer awareness level is increasing. With the passage of time, your competitors are increasing in number. At the same time, you have many major competitors in the market. There are more expectations from your internal and external customer. According to Philip Kotler, there are two types of customers: internal customer and external customer. Now, internal customer is your employee and external customer is your buyer. So, in order to satisfy the external customer, first of all, it is important that your internal customer should be satisfied. जैसे हम कहते हैं ना, ताली दोनों हाथों से बजती है, तो same is the case here, that internal and external customer concept given by Philip Kotler. Now, what are those changes in the like, for example, internal and external environment? Now, we have the micro environment and we have the macro environment. Like for example, employees' qualifications, their skills, their different traits are changing with the passage of time. On the other side, when we talk about the macro environment, like inflation rate is increasing, there are changes in customer needs and wants, competitors are increasing, and you have major competitors in the market. Like internet is almost everywhere in the world. So awareness level is rapidly increasing. Now it's only one click. You just click and you get information. So no more monopolies almost in the world. So keeping in view all those changes which are going on within the organization and from outside the organization, learning organizations, they sense those changes and signals from internal and external environment, and then they change themselves accordingly. Now, how an organization change itself? An organization can change itself by adopting different changes. And how that is possible? It is only possible with the help of learning. Talking about what is organizational learning, Argyros says that organizational learning as the process of detection and correction of errors. In his view, organizations learn through individuals acting as agents for them. Now, this is a comprehensive and wonderful definition of organizational learning given by Argyros. Detection and correction of errors. Now, what does it mean? It means that, first of all, you need to detect, you need to find out the errors, and then you correct it. Now, what is a problem? What is the real meaning of problem? What comes in your mind? The real meaning of problem is an opportunity. So people who believe that problems are opportunities, they all the time trying to identify the problems. They all the time trying to detect the problems, trying to detect the challenges, issues or errors. And once they detect it, once they identify the problem, they start working on it and start correcting it. So the real meaning of organizational learning is to have a continuous improvement in the organization, and organizations which keep on improving with the passage of time. They are the organizations who set the benchmarks in the market. They become the market leader, and we call them truly the learning organization. We continue our discussion on what is organizational learning. Huber, another philosopher, clarifies that learning need not be conscious or intentional. Further, learning does not always increase the learner's effectiveness or even potential effectiveness. Moreover, learning need not result in observable changes in behavior. Now, previously we have talked about Argyros, who said that learning is important and it produces results. But Huber has a total different point of view about organizational learning. He says that learning may be unintentional, or may be unintentional or intentional. It is not necessary that as a result of learning you will be able to increase your efficiency and effectiveness. Now, how do you differentiate efficiency and effectiveness in an organization? Okay, talking about efficiency, with minimum input you try to get the maximum output. That is called efficiency. And effectiveness is you try to achieve the results. So by achieving your targets, by achieving your results, by achieving your objectives, you become effective. And with minimum input you try to get the maximum output. That is called efficiency. So when we talk about tight competition like at present, organizations which are both efficient and effective, they are able to compete in the market. But according to Huber, it is also not necessary that the individual or the persons, employees working in the organization, they will be able to increase their performance as a result of learning. And it is also not necessary that there will be some observable changes in the behavior of employees as a result of learning. Further talking about organizational learning, Duncan and Weiss, they argue that individual learning occurs when people give a different response to the same stimulus. Now meaning that individual learning occurs जब people जो उनके responses हैं एक same किसी activity के नतीजे में they have different responses. But organizational learning occurs when groups of people give the same response to different stimuli. Now that shows the big difference between the individual learning and group of people learning. Like for example, action reaction. So whatever happens to you when the responses of every individual in the organization is different, that is called individual learning. But what happens in case of organizational learning, that in response to any action or in response to different actions, group of people give the same response. That is called organizational learning, according to Duncan and Weiss. Now let us talk about how organizations learn. Argyros and Shawn were the first to propose models that facilitate organizational learning. Talking further about Argyros and Shawn 1978, they distinguish between single loop and double loop learning. So there are two types of learning, single loop learning and double loop learning. Talking about single loop learning, individuals, groups or organizations modify their actions according to the difference between expected and obtained outcomes. Now, we have the expected outcomes and we have the obtained outcomes. This is the obtained outcome and this is the expected outcome. So, as a result, there is a performance gap, performance difference. And in single loop learning, people modify their actions to minimize the gap between expected and obtained outcomes. Whereas in case of double loop learning, the entities, individuals, groups or organizations question the values, assumptions and policies that led to the actions in the first place. If they are able to view and modify those, then second order or double loop learning has taken place. Now, double loop learning, in my opinion, is more important because it is not important that we need to, keep on doing same things every day. The highly recommended action is we need to keep on improving. So people who keep on doing everything same every day, they keep on getting the same results every time. So in order to get better results than your competitors, what you need to do is you need to do better than your competitors. You need to be creative. You need to be innovative. Now, how that is possible? That is only possible if you bring positive changes in your thinking. George Bernard Shaw says that you cannot change a person unless you changes his or her mind. Now, what do we mean by saying changing mind? It means that we are talking about changes in the attitude and behavior of the people who are working in our organization. Now, this is really very important. So people who question the values, assumptions, policies in the beginning, before initiation of any policy, before initiation of any value, they challenge it. And then they discuss it. And there is a phenomena called we agree to disagree. So they do the brainstorming and they bring most positive changes. That is their expectation. So they try to bring the most positive changes in their way of working, in their methods of working. Once they do it, that results in achievement of not only their targets, but they can exceed their targets as well. So when we keep the end in our minds, we can always improve our beginning. So there are people who keep the end in mind, and there are people who do not keep the end in their minds. So we always recommend that we should keep the ends in our minds. So this will bring, our current performance, and this will help us achieve more than our expectations. Now let us talk about types of learning. Let us talk about types of learning. Two types of learning are there: operant conditioning and social learning. Let us discuss these two types of learning one by one. Operant conditioning means learning that takes place when the learner recognizes the connection between a behavior and its consequences. Like for example, अगर आप पिक्चर में देखें कि एक पर्सन जो है वो अगर यहाँ पे पाँव रखेगा फॉर एग्जाम्पल, और उसको डेफिनेटली पेन होगी, इंजरी होगी, तो क्या वो दोबारा इस जगह पाँव रखना पसंद करेगा? हरगिज़ नहीं। तो जो किसी भी बिहेवियर का जो एक रिजल्ट होता है, उस रिजल्ट को सामने रखकर you learn. Like for example, if the result is good, you keep it up. You expand that activity. You are highly motivated to do that. But if the consequences of a behavior are negative, then what happens that you do not move towards that direction. You try not to do that again. So it means that there is a strong relationship between behavior and its consequences. Let us take another example. Like for example, if a student is not studying smartly, if a student is not paying attention, in like in his like studies and preparation of exam, things like that. So in most cases the result is the student is unable to get good marks, or even in most cases students do not qualify the exam. Now what is the learning from it? When we apply the concept of operant conditioning here, so students feels after the result comes that कि काश मैं पढ़ लेता, मैंने नहीं पढ़ा तो उसका नतीजा ये है कि या तो मेरे मार्क्स अच्छे नहीं आए या मैं क्वालिफाई नहीं कर सका कोर्स को. सो इट मीन्स दैट कि आपका जो एक्शन पार्ट है, आपकी जो बिहेवियर है, उसको जब हम रिजल्ट के साथ, कॉन्सिक्वेंसेस के साथ लिंक करते हैं, वी लर्न. तो इन द सेम एग्जाम्पल क्या होगा कि दिस स्टूडेंट विल बी फोकसिंग मोर ऑन स्टडीज बिकॉज ही नोज दैट कि अगर नहीं पढ़ेंगे तो पास नहीं होंगे, और अगर पढ़ेंगे लर्निंग होगी, यू बिकम अ बेटर पर्सन, योर पर्सनैलिटी इंप्रूव्स and you also get good marks in exam. So this results in positive motivation. Now another type is called social learning theory. A learning theory that takes into account the fact that thoughts and feelings influence learning. Now your thoughts and feelings, they influence learning. You are what you think. What does it mean? आप वही हैं जो आपकी सोच है. So your thinking takes you where you are now. So your thinking takes you where you are now, and it will take you whatever you think. So it is all around that thinking. And here I will re-emphasize the importance of critical thinking. So people who do that thinking to think, they are called critical thinkers. So our thoughts and our feelings influence learning, because once we have the positive thoughts and positive feelings towards learning, we learn more. But what about if we have negative thoughts and negative feelings? Necessary components of social learning theory are vicarious learning, self-control, and self-efficacy. Let us discuss these three components of social learning one by one. Of vicarious learning is that learning that occurs when one person, the learner, learns a behavior by watching another person, the model, perform the behavior. It means that we are learning from models. We have role models. Okay, do you have a role model? So everybody, in most cases, they have role models. We want to do like them. We want to achieve more than the expectations of our employers. And this model behavior help us do that. So people, they love their models whom they copy. वही करना चाहते हैं लोग जो उनके मॉडल्स कर रहे हैं, रोल मॉडल्स कर रहे हैं. Learners can also learn from situations in which models get punished. Another learning is when these role models, when they get punished, we also learn. And we try not to do those things that results in punishment. Role models can be positive or negative. Very interesting finding about this vicarious learning, that role models can be positive or negative. So some people, they want to be like most positive person on earth, but there are few people who like for example, negative personalities, negative people. So here I strongly recommend that one should try to follow the most positive role models, and we should never focus on negative role models, because negativity always result in negative consequences. So overall we can say that this learning component focuses on like the role models and learning from the role models, whether positive or negative. Now talking about self-control, self-discipline that allows a person to learn to perform a behavior even though there is no external pressure to do so. Now this is really a wonderful component of social learning theory. Self-discipline. Normally it is a common observation that जब एम्प्लॉइज को ऑब्जर्व किया जाता है, जब एम्प्लॉइज के ऊपर कोई प्रेशर होता है या लाइक फॉर एग्जांपल उनको कोई रिवॉर्ड दिया जाता है, सो देन दे ट्राई टू मीट द एक्सपेक्टेशंस. But in case of self-control, these are the people who are motivated from inside. They have extreme internal motivation. So without any, thinking about rewards or without any thinking about the negative or positive consequences, and without, there is nobody like influencing them and nobody is observing them, and even in case of no accountability, even then self-disciplined people are those who keep on performing their best without any pressures and without any expectations of rewards. Now talking about self-efficacy, a person's belief about his or her ability to perform a particular behavior successfully. कि एक पर्टिकुलर बिहेवियर परफॉर्म करने के लिए आपकी क्या बिलीफ है. एंड सोर्सेज ऑफ सेल्फ एफिकेसी आर पास्ट परफॉर्मेंस, वर्बल परसुएशन. नाउ आपको अपने ऊपर कितना यकीन है? हाउ मच डू यू ट्रस्ट योर सेल्फ? It means that how much you are confident about your skills, how much you are confident about your competency. So this is really very important, that how much strong belief you have about your abilities to perform any particular behavior. And the sources of self-efficacy are like past performance. Now, आपने अपने पास्ट में जो भी अचीवमेंट्स की हैं, जो भी आपकी सक्सेसेस हैं, इवन जो भी आपके फेलियर्स हैं, सो यू लर्न अ लॉट फ्रॉम इट. सो जिन लोगों की पास्ट में बहुत ज्यादा सक्सेसेस होते हैं, दे आर मोर कॉन्फिडेंट. और जिन लोगों के ज्यादा फेलियर्स होते हैं, in most cases they have less confidence. But here I would like to recommend one thing, that you are what you think. Even I have seen many people and I have read about many people in the world कि past performance में poor performance के बावजूद their present performance is wonderful. So there is always room for improvement. Yes, past performance can give you more confidence. But by becoming a good critical thinker, you can always improve your performance. Another source of self-efficacy is called verbal persuasion. Now, when we talk about verbal, it means verbal communication. There are two types of communications, verbal and non-verbal. Now, verbal communication means communication via spoken or written words. जैसे मैं इस वक्त आपसे बात कर रहा हूं, दिस इज वर्बल, स्पोकन. अगर मैं कुछ चीज लिख के आपको देता हूं, दैट इज कॉल्ड रिटन कम्युनिकेशन. सो बोथ oral and written communication is called verbal communication, whereas your body language, that includes your eye contact, facial expressions, postures, gestures, the way you dress, that is your body language. That is called non-verbal communication. So another source of self-efficacy we are talking about is the verbal persuasion. When somebody persuades you, when somebody motivates you in writing or in oral discussions, when somebody motivates you positively, that is called verbal persuasion. So employees can always improve their performance as a result of motivation. So I strongly believe कि ऐसी बहुत सी एग्जाम्पल्स आपके सामने होंगी कि जब टीचर्स ने अपने स्टूडेंट्स को अपने लेक्चर्स की मदद से मोटिवेट किया. So when people they use positive words, and those positive words in their oral or written communication, they create energy. They create positive energy. So people who are always talking about positive things, people who are always using positive words, that creates a positive energy in them. And that results in wonderful performance. Now let us talk about the learning obstacles. Philosopher named Common, 2004, discusses obstacles for organizational learning in the public sector. And these three major obstacles to learning are resistance to change, individual interests, and blame culture in the public sector in the world, and we are also talking about Pakistan as well. Now, when we talk about change, almost everybody agrees that there is a natural resistance to change. Like for example, आप अपनी क्लास में बैठे हुए हैं, आप अपने ऑफिस में बैठे हुए हैं, आप इस वक्त अपने घर में बैठे हुए हैं. So wherever you are sitting, थोड़ा सा आपको कोई कहता है कि राइट लेफ्ट होके थोड़ा सा बैठ जाएं आप, तो if you respect the person and if you agree, तो then आप उठ के जो भी पर्सन वो चाह रहा है, आप थोड़ा सा राइट लेफ्ट होके बैठ गए. What comes in your mind? Even you smile, but what comes in your mind? So in most cases, people always think that कि भाई मुझे क्यों उठाया गया, So this is a very minor example of change. So what about changing your job responsibilities? What about changing your office timings? So what about job rotation? So there are so many changes, and there is a lot of resistance to change. So when we talk about change, there are three levels of change: high resistance to change, medium resistance to change, low resistance to change. So employees, in most cases, they prefer familiar over the unfamiliar. Like for example, if you want to bring in some unique method of working, and that method of working is like none of the organizations in the world is using that new method of working. So what will be the resistance level of employees towards that new method? There will be high resistance to change, because this new working method is totally unfamiliar. और कोई चीज जितनी unfamiliar होगी, उतनी ही ज्यादा resistance होगी. Okay? On the other side, if the top management or the decision makers in any organization, they bring in any new working method which is new to the organization, but it is not new to the sector. Like for example, if you are working in a bank, so all other banks are using that method of working, but for example, your bank is not using that new working method. So when the decision makers, they adopt and bring in that new method, which is not new in the banking sector, but it is new in the organization where you are working, there is medium resistance to change, because you know that others are using, so this may give better results here as well. And talking about low resistance to change, I will give you a simple example here, that the decision makers, they reintroduce any working method. Like for example, आज से कुछ अर्सा पहले आप एक working method use कर रहे थे, then you stop using that, there is a gap, and then you again want to use that method. तो reintroducing, कि एक दफा आप यूज कर रहे थे, फिर आपने उसका यूजेज छोड़ दिया, and now again you want to use that method. So this is called reintroducing the method, and that is called that people, they have low resistance to change, because that method is they are already familiar with. So when we talk about change, there are three areas in organizations, in the public sector, or even in the private sector, they need to have change. The first one is the people. Now people means the employees. So in employees' attitude and behavior, we want to bring positive changes. Now, how do you differentiate attitude and behavior of employees? Okay. What about your attitude and behavior? इस वक्त you are watching this lecture. Okay, what is your attitude and behavior? Okay, इस वक्त whatever you are thinking, आपके ब्रेन में जो भी थिंकिंग चल रही है, जो भी आप बात सोच रहे हैं, दैट इज योर एटीट्यूड. और आपके चेहरे पे जो फेशियल एक्सप्रेशंस हैं, या अगर आप कुछ चीज लिख रहे हैं, अगर साथ बोल रहे हैं आप, that is called behavior. So thinking part is the attitude and action part is called the behavior. So talking about positive changes, the first area that needs change in the positive direction, that is called the attitude and behavior of employees. And almost all the researchers, they agree on one thing, that by bringing in positive changes in the attitude and behavior of our employees, we can set the benchmarks, we can do wonders, we can exceed the expectations of our employers and of our customers. The second area that needs to be changed in the positive direction, that is of structure. The rules and regulations, the organizational structure, or we also call it organogram. So what are the rules and regulations of the organization? What are the policies of the organization? Vision, mission, objectives, goals, etc. So we need to bring positive improvements according to the ground reality in the structure of the organization. We need to make it more realistic. Like for example, in public sector in Pakistan, we have the vertical organizational structure. Like channels 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So the low management writes to the middle management, and middle management writes to the top management, and the top management again writes to the middle management, and middle management again writes to the low management. And there are so many layers of management involved in this process, and none of the layers can be bypassed. So there is no direct feedback mechanisms from the low management to the top management, or from the top management to the low management. So what is the result? The result is declining performance. One thing is called symptom, the other is called root causes. पेट का दर्द इंपॉर्टेंट है या पेट के दर्द की वजह? यकीनन पेट के दर्द की वजह is more important than the symptom. और जो लोग पेन किलर्स लेते रहते हैं, तो अल्लाह ना करे कि एक दिन ऐसा आता है कि फिर पेन किलर भी काम नहीं करते. So instead of focusing all the time on symptoms, what we need to do is we need to focus on the root causes of the problem. And once we identify those root causes of the problem, we can convert that problem into an opportunity. And the final area that needs to be changed in the positive direction, that is called technology. So by adopting new technology and at the same time working smartly on creativity and innovation, because we cannot be dependent all the time on others. So this is really very important that आप new technology use करें, but at the same time try to create and innovate your own technology. So these are the three areas we have discussed so far: changing the attitude and behavior of the employees working in an organization, changing the organizational structures and making it more realistic according to the ground realities, and finally technology. The another learning obstacle maybe in public sector is that is called individual interest, or sometimes we call it the selfish interest. Now if that individual interest has an alignment with the organizational interest, that is called positive interest. But if that individual employee interest is not in alignment with the organizational interest, that is called selfish interest. सो जब लोग अपने ज़ाती मफादात के लिए काम करेंगे, अपनी ज़ाती ख्वाहिशात के लिए काम करेंगे, तो हाउ वी कैन एक्सपेक्ट लर्निंग इन दोज ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस? It is highly recommended here that we need to have an alignment between the individual interest and the organizational interest. दोनों इंटरेस्ट को अगर आप साथ लेके चलेंगे तो we can always move toward organizational effectiveness. And finally, another major learning obstacle in the public sector, and that is also very common in Pakistan, and that is called blame culture. There are two types of people, reactive and proactive. Now, reactive people are those who keep on blaming others all the time. They never take responsibility. They never recognize their role and their part in problem solving because they never accept the problem at the first place. So they put the blame, they put the responsibility all the time on others. And the other type of people are called proactive. Now, proactive people are those who accept the responsibility. So people who have the responsibility, and responsibility means they have the ability to choose their responses. So in order to minimize or in order to manage this blame culture, we need to promote a sense of responsibility among employees. And at the end of today's lecture, I'll give you few recommendations that how we can overcome these obstacles. Now, talking further about the organizational performance. Organizational performance is the process of directing and supporting employees to work as effectively and efficiently as possible in line with the needs of the organization according to Walters. Now, it means that you are not only directing your employees, you are also supporting your employees. You're trying to improve the organizational performance by bringing in positive changes in your employees, and the result is they become more efficient and more effective. And it should be in line with the needs of the organization. So whatever you do, that should be in line with the needs of the organization. And that is called organizational performance according to the philosopher Walters. Talking further about organizational performance, the higher you climb the ladder in your organization, the less chance you have of getting feedback about your performance. Now, why this happens? Like for example, you know very well that कि जैसे जैसे एम्प्लॉई का डेजिग्नेशन हाई होता है, उसका जो फीडबैक है अबाउट हिज परफॉर्मेंस वो उसको मिलने के चांसेस कम होना शुरू हो जाते हैं. Those who could most use performance feedback to enhance their performance are often the least likely to get it. और जिन लोगों को सबसे ज़्यादा परफॉर्मेंस फीडबैक की ज़रूरत है to improve their performance, उन लोगों को ही सबसे कम फीडबैक मिलता है. Now this is really a big tragedy when we look at the developing countries like Pakistan. होना तो ये चाहिए कि जो आप अपने ग्रेड में, अपने डेजिग्नेशन में ऊपर जा रहे हैं, आपकी प्रमोशन हो रही है, आपको उतना ज्यादा फीडबैक मिले. लेकिन इसके रिवर्स हो रहा है इन मोस्ट केसेस कि जैसे जैसे आप ऊपर जा रहे हैं लैडर में, जैसे जैसे आपकी प्रमोशन हो रही है, आपको अपनी परफॉर्मेंस के बारे में फीडबैक जो है वो कम मिलना शुरू हो गया, तो इट मीन्स कि जिस चीज की जरूरत आपको पहले से ज्यादा है वो आपको पहले से भी कम मिल रही है. सो व्हाट आर द पॉसिबल रिजल्ट्स? रिजल्ट ऑफ कोर्स इज योर परफॉर्मेंस लेवल डिक्लाइंस. Okay, talking about organizational performance myths. Number one myth is executives neither need nor want performance reviews. What does it mean? It means that they do not need it, most executives, because they believe that they are achieving their targets. And since they are achieving their targets, they don't need it. And on the other side, some executives, they do not want their performance reviews because they believe that it is below their dignity. Now, the recommendation here is that everybody, from the low management to the top management, they must have the performance reviews in order to keep on improving their performance level. So people who believe like this, that they do not need nor want performance reviews, they are highly mistaken. They are not moving up, they're actually moving down when we talk about their learning level. Another myth is a formal review is beneath the dignity of an executive. So some people, they also of the same opinion, like earlier discussed, that it is below the dignity. Like for example, they enjoy the top level position in the organization, so it is useless to get their performance review. So again, I would recommend that the performance review increases your dignity. So people who think that it is beneath the dignity, again, they are not moving in the positive direction. Myth number 3 is top level executives are too busy to conduct their appraisals. They don't have time, they are busy in meetings, achieving their targets, supervising, etc., etc. Again, the recommendation in myth number 3 is that the most important activity is their performance appraisal. So they should not ignore it at any cost. And myth number 4 is results are the only basis for assessing executive performance. Now this is again very interesting, because some people believe that since we are achieving our targets, since we are achieving our goals, so why there is a need of performance review? One thing is called output, the other thing is called outcome. Now output are the results. Whether you achieve your results or not, that is called the output, positive, negative output. So in myth number 4, when the top executives, when they are achieving their output, when they are achieving their results and targets, okay, this is one part. What about the outcome? The outcome is increase in their skill, increase in their capacity, increase in their competence, increase in their abilities. And that is only possible if you know that what is your real performance review. How you can improve yourself unless and until you know that what are your weaknesses. अगर एक पेशेंट जो है वो ये मानने से इनकार कर दे कि वो बीमार है, तो वो डॉक्टर के पास क्यों जाएगा और वो मेडिसिन क्यों खाएगा? So people who think that they do not need any improvement, they are highly mistaken, because improvement and learning is an ongoing process. Now, talking further about organizational performance, consider the following situations. The athlete searching for a coach who really understands him. The student waiting to see his guidance counselor at university. The worker who has just begun working for a new boss. What do all these above three situations have in common? The common thing is the need to manage performance effectively. Now let us talk about a very interesting thing, and that is called learning versus rejection of new ideas. So a person who invented this computer table chair, he was of the view that this is the most ugliest chair in the world and this will never get the popularity in the world. Now you tell me about this chair. This is one of the most popular chairs in the world these days. Continuing our discussion on learning versus rejection of new ideas, Gladwell believes our preferences are quite unstable, especially when we are first introduced to something new. This is because we need time to learn about the new object or idea. We also tend to make up stories by picking up clues when we are introduced to something new. Now let us talk about the reframe for the holistic. Generally, heart patients do not follow the doctor's instructions even facing a life or death situation. And this is common everywhere in the world, including Pakistan. Thus, how can we expect leaders to change behavior? This is a big question. Dr. Ornish, he proved that through a holistic program that includes going after their feelings by having them attend a twice weekly support group sessions led by a psychologist. A study showed that after 3 years, 77% of the patients had stuck with their lifestyle changes and avoided the surgery. So now you see the wonderful impact on these sessions with the help of a psychologist. Facing death for most people is much too frightening to think about. Thus, patients often go into denial. Whereas making daily life more enjoyable is a powerful motivator. Now let us talk about flow rather than script. Give employees flexibility in their work so that the situation is allowed to design itself rather than just becoming a carbon copy. So बजाय employees को ये कहने के कि आपने ये काम कैसे करना है, किस तरह करना है, एक एक चीज आप उनको बता देते हैं and you instruct them to do as it is. So you are trying to make them your carbon copy. So instead of doing this thing, give them independence. Okay, tell them the targets. Give them the time frame. But don't tell them the ways or the methods to do that activity. Let them do that. This will promote creativity and innovation in your organization. And they will not become your carbon copy, and that is what is required in an organization, which is called a learning organization. Now talking about velocity and viscosity. Velocity is the speed with which knowledge moves through an organization, whereas viscosity means the richness or thickness of the knowledge transferred. Knowledge requires viscosity, which uses rich sources. This is why knowledge can be so hard to come by at times. Organizational performance improves by focusing on learning, reframing, flowing, and viscosity. Now, talking about performance gap, you see the actual performance, you see the desired performance, and there is a performance gap. So what do we mean by underperformance? Consistently failing to deliver key aspects of your role in an organization is called underperformance. So what are the major causes of performance problems in organizations? The first major cause is incompetence. Then poor working conditions, lack of resources, like for example, lack of human resources, lack of financial resources, lack of physical resources, and lack of information resources. Talking about motivation or culture, the employee knows how to perform but does so incorrectly. So there is lack of motivation or unsupportive culture. So sometimes employees, they do not perform intentionally. Reasons why managers sometimes do not address problems in the organizations: they hope the problem might go away by itself, lack of confidence in problem solving, discomfort with the role of manager, a fear that if the problem is highlighted, more problems might come up, a fear of confrontation, worry that the working relationship might be damaged, fear of being challenged, lack of time, they don't have time to address problems, not knowing where to start, unclear whose role it is to address performance issues, lack of understanding that a performance issue exists, and finally, there is a lack of support from the top management. Now, these are another possible causes of underperformance: lack of training or support, poor supervision, tools, equipment not working adequately, unclear instructions or no clear targets, lack of understanding of role, unrealistic targets, ill health, personal problems. Relationships at work are difficult, workload, stress, change, and sometimes they think that they are in the wrong job. What is the procedure for managing poor performance legally? First of all, investigate, then informal and then formal discussions with the employees. Give time to improve to your employees. Monitoring, provide training, support, coaching, etc., and consideration of alternative action before dismissal. How to plan a difficult conversation with the poor performers? The desired outcome that you want, tell the employee about this thing. How to start the meeting and content of the conversation should be decided in advance. Managing oneself, so you should control your temper and emotions, and then you should be good in dealing with the conflict in a positive manner. So you must deal with problems promptly as a leader, otherwise the person who is a poor performer can reasonably assume their performance is acceptable. Others may become demotivated and stressed. The problem behavior will become a habit. A bad precedent may be set, and your credibility in the organization or outside the organization may be damaged. And finally, how to ensure improved organizational performance. You should set improvement goals, establish comfort, allow employees influences in decision making, and finally provide constructive information. Thank you very much, all of you. I hope that with the help of today's lecture you have learned a lot. Inshallah, see you all in the next lecture. Khuda Hafiz.